What if Robb Stark didn't execute Rickard Karstark? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Robb hesitates as he stares at the door of the prison cell. One hand reaches out and hovers a few inches from the knob. Part of him wants to turn back and head to his room, but this matter cannot be avoided. Taking a deep breath, he opens the door to reveal Rickard Karstark, sitting cross-legged on his straw pallet. The old man's gaze watches him warily, angry but calm.
So, is it my time to see your father?
Even if I did that, you wouldn't go to my father, Lord Rickard. But your time has not come.
Then do you intend to chastise me and release me like you do all traitors?
Do not test me, my lord. I still have not decided for certain. You may still end up on the headsman's block if you don't mind your tongue. That much was true. He had thought long and hard about what he should do. His first instinct was to do as his father would have done. A man has done wrong. He must pay for it. And Rickard Karstark did something unforgivable. And yet, what would that achieve for him? The Freys were lost to him, and the Karstarks may soon join them. No, he cannot afford to lose them as well. Honor was what his father would do, but he also understood the necessities of war. Surely he could forgive Robb for this. His uncle had given him prudent advice. He decided to take it.
You will live, if only for the loyal service you've provided up until this point. But make no mistake, this is not mercy, Lord Rickard. From this moment on, you shall be stripped of lordship of Carhold. That honor shall pass to your uncle or your son, Herion.
My sons are dead.
No, not Herion. I have received word that he lives and has been taken captive in Maidenpool. I intend to trade some of our Lannisters for him. Robert Glover shares his cell, and if I have Martin's twin, I could have taken him as well. You denied him his freedom.
For the first time, Lord Rickard shows a hint of shame as he bows his head. Such a deal would need to be done in secrecy, of course. They cannot send word of Willem's death until the trade is done. It shames Robb to have to fall to such a deception, but he has no choice.
And after my son is traded?
After that, you shall remain a guest at Winterfell until such a time as Lord Herion proves to be a loyal bannerman. After that, we may begin discussing your release. In the meantime, I require you to send word out to your men scattered in the Riverlands. There are still nearly 300 cavalry and 1,000 infantry sworn to you, not to mention the others still sworn to you. I mean to bring them back into the fold.
Lord Karstark stares at Robb for a moment, narrowing his eyes. There is something in the boy that wasn't there when he was brought before him days ago. A fresh fire within, and a dark gleam. It was something that he never saw when he was serving Ned Stark. He looks at Robb with newfound respect and bows his head. When he exhales, Rickard's shoulders sag as he considers everything that's happened. The grief still weighs heavily on him, but for the first time, he begins to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
I will do as you say, Your Grace.
By the next morning, a criminal resembling Lord Rickard is executed in his place, and his head is placed atop Riverrun's walls as a warning to those who would defy their king. Plans are made, and letters are sent out in secret to inform the Lannisters of their offer. Robb is willing to trade Martin Lannister for Herion Karstark. At first, Tywin is furious at this, reminding him that the Karstarks were the ones who wronged his family. Robb coldly writes that Rickard was responsible for their wrongs, and his son has been a prisoner all this time. He cannot be held responsible for the sins of his father. He ends by pointing out that he cannot guarantee Martin Lannister's safety, and it would be best to send him home. With Kevan sick with grief from the loss of one son, Tywin cannot refuse the opportunity. Still, he tries to haggle, offering Robert Glover or Ronald Stout instead, but Robb is unmoved. It is Herion Karstark or no one. In the end, Tywin only agrees after he sends a letter to Roose, secretly informing him of this trade. He reminds him of their plan and how the Karstark men can be useful in this effort. In the end, the deal is made, and Martin is released from Riverrun while Herion is sent out for Maidenpool. Robb sends the Blackfish to handle the exchange, and both parties meet in Highheart. No words are exchanged, simply two captives. With the deal done, they ride back to Riverrun, where the army is planned to depart. However, as Herion climbs off his horse, he is immediately taken to the dungeons below. There, Robb is waiting for him, Greywind by his side. The wolf growls until the king places a hand on his head. The guards open one of the doors and gesture for Herion to make his way inside.
Is this why you ransomed me? So you may take me captive instead, Your Grace. Look inside and see for yourself.
Raising an eyebrow, the hair of Carhold follows and peers inside. His eyes widen at the sight before him. He sees his father there, standing tall and straight as ever. Though his face is disheveled, he appears no worse for wear. Harion drops to his knee, but his father rounds him and pulls him into an embrace. Both men stand there in silence, mourning the loss of their kin, but also rejoicing in their return. When at last they pull away, Harion glances at Robb confused. The king closes the door behind them and explains the situation. He does not mince words, and though his expression softens slightly, his gaze remains hard. By the time he is done, the two Karstark men nod grimly. The next day, Robb and his army ride out for the twins in order to make amends with Walder Frey. Alongside them is the newly made Lord Rickard Karstark. Rickard is the only one who remains in Riverrun, guarded by the Blackfish, who intends to move him to Winterfell once it is secured. Along the way, they run into the remaining Karstark men along the Red Fork. Just as the Lord of Karhold had promised, he recalled his men, who slowly regrouped. There are more than 1,000 of them scattered across the Riverlands, with nearly 600 there now. These are placed under Harion's command as they finish their journey to the twins. There, they reunite with Roose Bolton and combine their army. Robb thanks him for his aid, but as they depart, orders are given to the Karstark men to place their camp some ways away from the rest of them. Harion reddens at this, taking it as an insult instead of punishment to their house. Yet Roose places a hand on his shoulder and shakes his head.
It seems our king in the north is not quite the forgiving sort, but I suppose he made that clear with what he did to your father, Lord Harion. Know that I grieve for him.
My father was a traitor, Lord Bolton.
Indeed, but he acted in the name of love. I do not fault him for what he did, and I doubt many would.
Still, we are Robb Stark's men. We cannot go above his authority.
Indeed. Troublesome, is it not? I know how difficult it must be to serve the man who executed him.
He leaves Harion with those thoughts as Roose leads his host closer towards the twins. No one complains that the Karstarks pitched their tents away from the main camp. Tensions still run high between them. Many of the lords and even some of their men-at-arms mutter disdainfully about the Karstark treachery. And yet, these are drowned out by the sound of celebrations as a wedding ceremony commences. To appease the Freys for abandoning their marriage pact, Robb agrees to let them select a bride for Edmure Tully, and the wedding ceremony takes place later that night. It was just as the Freys had expected, and soon wine and food flowed freely from their castle, and both lords and common soldiers lay aside their swords and forgot their worries. Instead, they drink, toast, and laugh at the festivities. Even in the twins themselves, the tension seems to melt away, as Lord Frey seems appeased by these efforts. The Northmen relax and begin to drink alongside their restored allies. Slowly, the Karstark men are welcomed back into the camp, though many refuse to go there after seeing how they were treated. Still, some food is brought to them, so they may share the same hospitality of the Freys. To their surprise, the man who organizes this distribution is Roose. He appears in Harion's pavilion and offers him a flagon of wine.
A gift from Lord Frey, my lord. He says he toasts to your new lordship and wishes you well. A rather empty gesture, if you ask me. What is a lordship without a father?
What are you getting at, Lord Bolton?
That you do not need to scrape before this boy king who presented your father's head. There is an opportunity for us to grab, if you are willing to join me.
Roose takes the young lord by the arm and guides him away. His voice barely rises above a whisper, but each word drips with sinister intent as he lays out the plan. Harion's eyes widen and the color drains from his face. The older man senses his hesitation and shakes his head. He says he understands his hesitation and informs him he does not need to do anything, except have his men set up camp a bit further south away from the feast, so they are not caught in between to avoid further incidents. And then, the laughter in the hall turns to screams as the Rains of Castamere begin playing. Harion freezes, watching the slaughter happen as he sees the great tents the Northmen were at starting to collapse, just as the men of House Frey arrive. Hundreds of them, at least, more than a match for the disorganized men. He wants to tear his eyes away from it, but he cannot. Eventually, he turns to Roose and shakes his head.
How can you be sure I won't say anything about this?
Because you have been a lord for a fortnight. I have ruled the Dreadfort for over 20 years. I served Robb Stark well when your family disgraced itself. Who would believe you? It shall be your word against mine, and I can simply say that you had a hand in this, hence why you put your tent so far away. Of course, you do not have to do anything. Simply sit and watch the show.
By the time he finishes, Roose disappears to take command of his host. Harion is left dazed and queasy as he sees this, yet he forces himself to sit and drink the wine, pondering what Roose is offering to him. To do nothing would guarantee him a position in Karhold as a ruler, and no doubt Lord Bolton has already planned to take over the North. It would help him gain favor from the new Warden of the North. And he isn't wrong when he talks about bowing and scraping before Robb Stark. It had taken all his willpower not to rush the boy and strangle him after he saw his father. Even alive, it was a humiliation that still galled him. But Lord Rickard was still alive. If he did nothing, then his father was as good as dead. Taking another deep swig of wine, Harrion mobilizes his men. He orders the foot, some 300 men, to aid the Northmen in the camp, along with 200 of their cavalry. The rest are to join him and ride towards the twins. He buckles his sword belt and curses to himself as he rides off. In the twins, Robb groans as a crossbow bolt embeds itself in his side. He is surrounded by a handful of guards who have pushed a table over to guard him. They try their best to hold back the oncoming frays. Catelyn watches as Small John Umber is cut down. Robin Flint manages to snap one men-at-arms neck before being hacked apart. Wendell Manderley raises his shield to try and block some attacks, but is overwhelmed. Soon, only Robb is left, as all around him, the Northmen and Riverlords are cut down or dragged off into the dungeons. The Frey men swarm the hall and begin clearing it out, while crossbows pick off the survivors. And then, the door bursts open. A Bolton man-at-arms stumbles inside, his arm dangling uselessly as he stumbles to the ground. A moment later, a Karstark knight steps over him and drives his spear into his back. He lets out a battle cry as Lord Harrion and his men flood the room. With only 100 men, he is badly outnumbered. However, unlike the guests, his men-at-arms are armed and armored. More importantly, they are prepared. They carry shields to protect the injured and begin slaughtering the Freys, who just a moment ago were slaying their guests. Harrion himself fights his way towards Robb. 2 men-at-arms try to stop him, but he cuts them down with a battle axe. Roose watches this, his face darkening, but he has only a handful of his men with him.
Lord Bolton, help us!
He glances around and surveys the fighting, but then slowly rises up and gestures for his men to move. They rush the Karstark men, but not those in the middle of the halls. Instead, they move along the side to open a path for Roose to escape amidst the chaos. In minutes, the tide of battle had turned, as now the Freys were the ones being slaughtered. While many of the Northmen lords and rivermen were slain, many were still alive, battered, wounded, and exhausted, but still breathing. Lord Walder leans back on his chair and tries feebly to rise just as they surrounded him and draw steel on him. Robb leans heavily on Harrion.
You have my thanks, my lord.
Don't thank me. I didn't do it for you. I did it for my father.
Lord Frey,
You have much to explain.
While the rest of the leaders hurry to rally their men outside, Robb, Catelyn, and Harrion remain. They begin to interrogate Lord Walder, and though the Frey tries to put up a brave face, he soon crumbles the moment Robb holds a sword to his throat. The old man pleads for mercy, but the king is not inclined to give it, not when he has been betrayed like this. Slowly, he presses the sword closer until a droplet of blood bursts free from his bony neck. At last, Lord Frey breaks and confesses everything. He says that the Lannisters had put them up to it, and that in order to be granted royal pardon, he was tasked with betraying the Starks. To prove it, he produces the letters and shows them to him. As Catelyn reads it aloud, Robb's face darkens, and then, with a single swing, he cuts the ruler of the crossing down. Outside, the battle has come to an end, with the last of the Freys being disarmed or defeated. Thanks to Karstark's attack, the Northmen were able to rally and finish off the battle. However, their numbers were mauled, and they can barely muster 2,500 men. And worse still, Roose Bolton is unaccounted for, as he and his men fled in the chaos. Men are sent to find them while the army takes over the twins. Robb contemplates his next move, as he is in a difficult position. While he's won every battle, he knows he doesn't have the manpower to risk another conflict. Even with his men rallying whoever they can and gathering scattered bands of Northmen who fled in the chaos, it will take time. Catelyn instead suggests using the letters they've gathered to shift to a propaganda war against the Lannisters. Copies of them are made and sent out across the Riverlands and beyond. He makes sure some reach the Eyrie, Sunspear, and Highgarden, telling them of Lannister treachery and betrayal. The news shocks the realm as they see the full extent of Tywin's brutality. Acts of violence in a war are one thing, but he had encouraged treachery like this, and even broken the sacred oath of guest right. While the Freys might have been the perpetrators, they see that the Lannisters and Roose signed off on it. These claims put Tywin in a difficult position, as even houses that allied or bent the knee to him are appalled. The Tyrells are horrified and demand answers, and the Dornish mutter that it justifies everything they had feared and shows the Lannisters have not changed. Even the houses of the Stormlands, who have yielded, grow worried. Guest right was sacred across the Seven Kingdoms. If they are willing to forget that, are they truly safe? Tywin tries his best to do damage control, especially with the wedding around the corner, but there is no putting out that flame once it has been lit. Olenna Tyrell is now convinced that they cannot sustain their alliance without Joffrey and continues forward with their plan. Meanwhile, the Dornish see potential allies in the Starks. They have been so wronged by the Lannisters that peace cannot possibly be achieved. As Oberyn looks over the letter detailing what happened in the Twins, emotions war within him. On one hand, he is disgusted that the Lannisters would even attempt something like this. On the other hand, he cannot deny the benefits it could have for his cause. Within a fortnight, a Dornish envoy arrives at the Twins in secret.
Prince Doran offers friendship. Dorne will not kneel to the Lions, nor forgive such treachery. They have wronged us during the rebellion, and now the Lannisters have wronged you. He proposes an alliance, Stark and Martell, bound by common cause. He recognizes Ned Stark as the most worthy man during the rebellion, and offers his aid in that spirit. When the time is ripe, we shall strike together at Tywin and his Tyrell allies. And as a token of goodwill, Prince Oberyn has persuaded sellswords from Essos to march beneath your banners.
Robb stands at the head of the hall, Catelyn at his side, his bannermen gathered in tense silence. The scars of the Red Wedding linger, empty seats, bandaged wounds, haunted eyes. The promise of fresh swords is a balm for that wound.
Tell your prince that his offer is not wasted on us. If Dorne wishes justice, then we share in that wish.
The Red Viper gets to work, writing to some of the sellsword companies he's worked for, captains he shared drinks with, and warriors he shared beds with. He tells them of this deal and offers to pay them handsomely. Tattooed men of Volantis, lean riders of the disputed lands, and tribesmen from the fringes of the free cities. Not enough to replace what was lost, but enough to breathe strength back into the battered host. Slowly, the battered army of the North begins to rebuild, as bands of Northmen also trickle in. But the strangest one is a scarred man with a burned face who emerges days after the Red Wedding. Sandor Clegane rides into Riverrun, a mud-spattered shadow with a small girl at his side. Arya Stark. She bursts from behind him, wild-eyed and ragged, and for the first time in months, mother and daughter embrace. Catelyn weeps openly, clutching Arya as if she will never let go. Even Robb, hardened by betrayal and grief, sinks to his knees and gathers his sister into his arms. For a fleeting moment, the hall feels like Winterfell, but duty soon hardens Robb again. He calls Arya and his mother aside that night, away from the feasting and the fires.
You're safe now, but safety cannot last here. The North is yet unsteadied, and the riverlands bleed daily. You must leave here.
Then where shall we go?
Dorne offers us shelter. The lands there are untouched by the war and impossible to invade. You will be safe there, and perhaps you can serve as my envoy, Mother. You can take Arya too.
I won't be sent away. I can fight. I've fought more than half the men here.
You are my sister. That is why you must live. Trust me, Arya. I know how hard it is, but it won't be forever.
At last, though unwillingly, she consents, comforted only by her mother's hand. Soon, under Stark guard and Dornish escort, Catelyn and Arya board a ship for the deserts of Dorne. The journey takes weeks, but at last they arrive at Sunspear. There, beyond the shadowed halls of Sunspear, they are brought before Prince Doran himself, slow to rise, heavy with age and illness, yet sharp of mind. The prince regards them with calm calculation.
You have suffered greatly at the Lion's hands. So have we. But the Lions will fall. My agents already reach across the seas to seek allies.
Yes, we've already started receiving some of the sellswords you've sent us. They shall be a great boon to our cause.
Thank you, my lady. However, I have more to offer than merely a few hired blades. I think we both know we can never accept a Lannister on the throne, no matter who they might be. Daenerys Targaryen, true heir of the Iron Throne. She lives and is conquering Slaver's Bay. Soon, she will have an army and a fleet. With her dragons, she will be unstoppable. With your son's swords and the Dornish spears, we may yet remake the realm.
Catelyn feels the weight of his words settle over her like a tide. Arya listens, with restless fire in her eyes, barely able to contain her impatience.
That is certainly ambitious, Prince Doran, yet she is a world away. And what shall you do with Tommen? Even if Joffrey were to fall, Tommen would succeed him. This would create a new succession crisis.
Indeed. And yet, what do you think would happen if Tommen took the throne? Prince Oberyn describes him as a good lad, kind and sweet, unlike his brother. And yet he shall remain under the thumb of the Lannisters. Lord Tywin and Queen Cersei will not relinquish power, and will rule through him. If peace is to descend onto the realm, the Lannisters must be removed from power completely.
Soon after, more and more men rally around Robb until, at last, he has an army large enough to retake Moat Cailin and the north. He now has a force numbering some 6,000 men, including nearly 2,000 sellswords provided by the Red Viper. Thankfully, the Ironborn are weakened thanks to the death of Balon Greyjoy, which requires most of the Iron Fleet to sail back to Pike in order to discuss succession. With that, only a small portion of the garrison remains, and Robb contacts the Krenigmen, who guide him in a small force past Moat Cailin to attack from the north, while the rest of the men strike from the south. The Ironborn are unfamiliar with the terrain and don't expect this. Their entire attention is focused on the south, where Robb's men strike undetected. It is only when Greywind leaps upon them that they recognize the attack, but by then, it is too late. Within an hour, Moat Cailin falls, and Greatjon eagerly tears down the Kraken banners and replaces them with a direwolf of House Stark. As their army presses northward, Robb's bannermen eagerly return to their homes to reclaim them. Thankfully, the Ironborn here proved to put up even less of a fight, as they relied on speed and surprise for their success. But now, with the Northern's eyes upon them, the castles fall one by one. Torrance Square falls after a brief siege, since the remaining Tallheart men use a hidden entrance to slaughter the Ironborn. Galbert Glover and his men use the trees for cover and fall upon the Ironborn in the dead of night. Along with the White Knife, the Manderly sail barges along its mouth and block off the Ironborn longships, letting their archers rain fire upon them. In weeks, all of the major castles are retaken. The bulk of Robb's army, including the sellswords, focus on rebuilding Winterfell. In the meantime, the River Lords take charge of their own defenses, rebuilding their castles and organizing their armies. However, these rivermen are in a sorry state. The recent fighting, coupled with the Red Wedding, has badly depleted their forces. Oberyn sent a few sellswords to reinforce them, but their numbers are few. They certainly aren't enough to stop the Mountain from beginning raids along the border once again. Edmure and the Blackfish gather a small force of volunteers and send them out to taunt the Mountain. They follow him as he retreats past Harrenhal, only to be ambushed and wiped out. However, rather than being struck by the Mountain's men, they are instead hit by the remnants of the Bolton army, which regrouped around Maidenpool and are being reinforced by Randall Tarley. The Blackfish curses this, seeing the Tyrells starting to regain strength and preparing for an offensive. He orders the riverfolk to begin fortifying the crossing along the Trident once more. They cannot allow the Crown to regain the momentum in the war during a fresh offensive. Roose, although defeated, still proves to be a valuable ally, as he commands nearly 2,000 Northmen. While this incident has revealed his treachery, it also means he is now fully committed to the war against Robb. Tywin puts him to good use as a raider and guide, given how his army was the force that moved up and down along the Riverlands. In the meantime, he focuses his efforts on the wedding between Joffrey and Margaery. This will cement their alliance between the Tyrells and Lannisters. Yet, while they are still willing to go through with it, distrust now fills the air of the Red Keep as rumors of the Red Wedding haunt them. Again and again, Tywin has denied the claims of Robb regarding his involvement, and in the spirit of cooperation, Mace overlooks it as well. However, there remain many unanswered questions. Olenna says nothing and continues to act like the supportive grandmother, all the while she procures a special gift for Joffrey. On the day of his wedding, she slips the gift into his wine and watches as the king begins to choke after drinking it. The whole celebration comes to an end as they look at the boy king in surprise. Despite their best efforts to save him, the king dies in the arms of his mother, while Tyrion is blamed. Chaos follows as a trial is held to determine whether or not Tyrion is the culprit. This distracts the court from the war, giving the River Lords time to prepare. Even Randall Tarley, who remains in the front, does little more than raid and probe the enemy's defenses. Though Roose tries to urge them forward, he does not have the clout or the numbers to push on the offensive. Yet Robb isn't in a position to do anything either. While the Ironborn might have been driven off, he now must contend with another problem. The Wildling horde is approaching the wall. Though the Night's Watch has sent letters to all great houses pleading for help, only House Stark answers the call. Robb gathers his sellswords and the men of Houses Umber and Karstark to ride out. These are the castles closest to the wall, and both fell under the pressure of an attack, giving Robb an army of 4,000 men, including many veterans from the War of the Five Kings. It isn't a large force, but against the undisciplined host of the Wildlings, it is more than enough. Both Free Folk and Night's Watchmen wake up to see the banners fluttering in the distance, along with row after row of heavy horses. Yet as they ride, Robb's mind isn't on the upcoming battles, but on his brother. He had wished to name Jon Snow as his heir in his will, and now he still considers that option. Though Arya is back, he doubts whether she will even want that responsibility. Yet Jon is his brother, and now has experience in serving in the military, which would be useful in the upcoming battles. These ideas are only further strengthened when he sees the situation on the wall. They had arrived too late, as the battle was already joined between the Night's Watch and the Wildlings. Several attacks had already taken place on the wall, including a daring sneak attack behind Castle Black that almost succeeded in taking the castle unaware. And yet, the wall had held, and a big reason for that is because of Jon Snow, according to some of the rangers who were fighting. The Wildlings surge against the wall in wave after wave, shouting and hammering at the gates of Castle Black, while giants batter at the outer defenses with tree trunks for rams. Smoke from burning watchtowers mixes with the icy air, and the cries of dying men echo from the field. Robb raises his hand, and the umber horns sound. 4,000 Northmen and sellswords thunder forward, their charge shaking the frozen earth. Wildling lines, disorganized and stretched thin, buckle at once beneath the weight of the armored horses. Riders scatter, spears splinter, and the first ranks are cut down like stalks of wheat before the scythe. Yet, amid the chaos, Robb's eyes are drawn to the wall itself. On its narrow walkways, black-cloaked brothers fight with grim desperation, holding torches aloft as they repel climbers with arrows and rocks. Commanding them is Jon Snow. Robb watches as Jon rallies a knot of men, shouting above the storm. With sword in hand, he cuts down a wildling raider, then points toward the giants battering the southern gate. Another rolls down a barrel of pitch. Archers rush to obey his orders, loosing fire-tipped shafts into the mammoths that haul the rams. When one beast stumbles aflame, crashing into the fellows, the gate is spared. Robb feels his chest tighten, pride swelling despite the cold. By nightfall, the wildlings rout. The field is littered with corpses, but the wall still stands. Robb dismounts in the yard of Castle Black, his men cheering the victory. Jon comes forward, face streaked with soot, eyes blazing with exhaustion and triumph.
Brother, without you, the wall would have fallen. It was your leadership that kept things together until I arrived. This success is as much yours as it is mine. You've grown so much. Me? You're the one who became a king. A poor king, if you ask me. You don't wear a crown, but they still follow you. The watch held. That is all that matters.
He smiles and invites the lords into the great hall of Castle Black.
Before our journey to the Twins, I was asked to consider naming my heir for the fear that I might fall in the coming battle. My first thought had been to name my brother. Today, I am more certain of that decision than ever.
A murmur runs through the tent. Rickard Karstark rises uneasily.
Begging your pardon, Your Grace, but what of your sister, Arya Stark?
I have considered that. Arya is brave and good, but she is young and has never been inclined towards ruling. Jon Snow has demonstrated his ability to lead. We need his skills now more than ever.
Your Grace, forgive me, but even if we are to consider that, Jon is sworn to the Night's Watch. To take him from it is unprecedented. The oath to the Watch is sacred. Any who leave it are named deserters. If we set this aside, what keeps any other vow from meaning anything?
Unprecedented. So is half this war. We have seen betrayals at feasts, false pardons, and lords butchered under guest right. Oaths have already been broken by Lions and Freys alike. I will not let tradition rob the North of the leader it needs. Jon Snow is my brother, and he will be my heir. That is my word as king.
And yet, what makes us any different than the Lannisters if we choose to go down this path, Your Grace?
Do not think it so lowly of yourself that you would compare yourself to thieves and butchers. Whatever we take, we will restore. If the Night's Watch allows me to do this, I shall provide them with my full support. 100 men now, and 1,000 more by the end of this year. I shall see the castles you have in your possession restored and garrisoned to prevent another attack.
The hall falls silent. None dare challenge him further. It is then that the ravens come, bearing shocking news. Tywin Lannister is dead, murdered in the privy after Tyrion's trial by combat. The Lannister grip on the realm trembles as word spreads. Already the Tyrells whisper of taking command, eager to scrub clean the stain of the Red Wedding and strengthen their hold on the Iron Throne. Not long after, a second message arrives from Sunspear. Doran Martell has resolved that the time has come to send envoys across the sea to Daenerys Targaryen. He urges Robb to do the same, to show good faith in the alliance. Robb considers long into the night before summoning Jon and Harrion to his side.
The Martells believe Daenerys may be the key to breaking the lines once and for all. If so, She must hear of our cause, not just theirs. John, Herion, you will go in my stead.
John bows, though unease flickers in his eyes at leaving the wall so soon after its salvation. Herion inclines his head more slowly, wary but obedient.
You go not only as my envoy, John. You go as heir to Winterfell. Make her know it.
The sea is restless, black waves rolling against the hull as the Westerosi ship cuts south. John stands at the prow, the salt wind biting at his face. He stares eastward, towards Slaver's Bay, but his thoughts drift north. To Mance Rayder, to Torment, to the wildling camps scattered beyond the wall. They will need him. Though they tried to cross the wall, he understands their reasons and sees the necessity. Enemies they might be, but what lurks beyond the wall is far worse. They cannot ignore it, and he's told Robb as much. But as brilliant a leader as his brother is, he does not understand the free folk. He glances at his companions. Behind him, Rickard Karstark leans sullenly on the railing, his jaw clenching tight. He has hardly spoken since White Harbor. To him, this voyage is exile dressed up as duty. Though he had saved Robb, his house is still treated as a pariah by the rest of the North. Quentin Martell, meanwhile, paces the deck with a nervous energy. He glances at John and Herion both, as though weighing every word. He is young, eager, and unsure, a prince carrying his father's hope. And John can practically see it hanging on his shoulders. By the time they see Marine's walls, they are all eager to meet the Queen. The city rises like a mirage. High pyramids crowned with flame, walls scorched from siege, banners of the dragons snapping in the breeze. But when they are brought within the gates, the cracks are plain. The city around them whispers of unrest, freedmen brawling in the streets, reports of murderers in alleyways, sellswords demanding pay, envoys of Yunkai shouting defiance from beyond the walls. When Quentin bows and offers Dorne support, Daenerys listens politely, but her gaze lingers on John and Herion.
I recall Dorne in my advisor's stories. They were our most loyal allies. I am pleased to see they have not forgotten me. Your aid is most welcome, but the Starks... Now that is surprising. Your father betrayed my father and helped the usurper overthrow the Targaryens. Why should I trust you?
Because you seek justice. So do we. The Lions butchered us under Guestright, as they butchered your kin in King's Landing. My brother still fights them in Westeros, which means we share the same enemy.
I am to help my enemies fight their enemies. That is not an alliance.
One could argue we are doing the same thing. Your father spilled Stark blood out of bloodlust. The North had no desire to overthrow him, but we did so for justice, and we would gladly do so again.
Daenerys' eyes widen, and she leans closer to regard the upstart lord. Rather than oppose him, John moves to his side.
My friend speaks the truth. Your father was not a man worth following. Any person who murders men for his own amusement is not.
Lord Quentin, what do you say about this?
Your Grace, I never met the Mad King, but I had heard of him. Many of those tales were not good.
The news takes her off guard. She had not expected this, at least not from the Dornishmen, and yet they agreed nonetheless, albeit rather begrudgingly. She sinks back into her seat and shakes her head.
Even if I did wish to claim the throne now, I am in no position to march. Marine is mine, but the city is newly captured. It must be brought to order, and that is not even mentioning Yunkai. My sources tell me they are trying to gather troops.
Of course. We shall help you consolidate your position as best possible.
He glances at his two companions, who nod slowly. However, it is clear neither likes this plan, but agrees to help. They manage to organize some defenses and meet with the nobles, but just a few days later, a messenger bursts into the hall, breathless, and his message cannot wait. Astapor has fallen. The city is lost, its streets drown in fire and blood as the Yunkish people stormed the walls and placed its freedmen back into chains. Herion makes a bold suggestion that Marine cannot be held, and that Daenerys should simply leave it behind. Perhaps she can come to an accommodation with the Yunkish, who are likely eager to leave. She can leave one of her men in command, perhaps Sir Barristan, to keep things together while she conquers the Seven Kingdoms. A few of her advisors seem intrigued by this idea. The sellswords are eager for plunder and agree, while the Unsullied even claim that they will fight for her regardless on the battlefield. Even Barristan urges her to take action while they still have the chance, and the Iron Throne remains weak.
I will not abandon Marine. I swore to free these people, and I will not flee because it is hard. I welcome your Lord's spears and your counsel, Rickard Karstark, but I will not be a beggar queen who runs from every storm. Tell Robb Stark that if he wishes to aid me, he will send me allies who can fight. not promises.
Harrion and the others try their best to hide their dismay, but they can see the Queen has made up her mind. John looks at her, half in disbelief and half impressed with her conviction. He understands the necessity to stand by her beliefs and begins to see why Robb and Dorn wish to ally with her. He wishes to help, not just because of Robb's command, but because of what it represents. And as he sits back and thinks, his mind goes back into his own promises.
The free folk, they are raiders, yes, hard and stubborn, but they hate chains. They hate masters. Give them arms, give them land, and give them freedom, and they will fight for you.
Madness. You'd bring savages across the world to play at being farmers and soldiers. You would crush rats by unleashing snakes upon them.
And yet, as John describes these free folk, Daenerys is intrigued by them. In her time with the Dothraki, she has come to appreciate the cultures of those deemed savages, and wildlings seem no different. The mention of giants and raiders gets her attention.
If these men are as ferocious as you say they are, I will have them. I have much land to give, and smiths to forge weapons. All I require are men to wield them.
Later that night, John sits by candlelight, quill in hand. His words to Robb are swift and unflinching. Send Mance. Send Tormund. Send every free folk who will come. They can build here what they cannot in the north, and in fighting for her, they fight against the slavers. He seals the letter and gives it to the Martell ship captain, watching the vessel set sail under moonlight. Behind him, Harrion mutters darkly.
You're gambling everything on savages and giants. I pray you're right, Snow. If not, the North will pay for it.
John says nothing, only looks eastward toward the sound of chains rattling in the dark.
Have some faith, Lord Karstark.
My faith is in my axe. That is all that I can rely on these days.
Over the next few days, the Westerosi delegation does what they can to strengthen Daenerys' rule. As a newly made conqueror, she still has yet to fully establish her rule even in Meereen. That is why the nobles of Westeros and their retinue prove valuable, as they gave her some semblance of legitimacy. Jon attends court with her, helping her train the Unsullied and placate the sellswords. There, he begins gathering clues about the Sons of the Harpy, causing trouble. Harrion and Barristan Selmy begin drilling the new soldiers to restore order. Quentyn and the other Dornishmen meet with the nobles of the city in order to gain their support. Slowly, they begin to strengthen their rule, as some nobles begin to recognize her and lend their support, and a proper city watch and standing army is formed, taking some of the strain from the Unsullied. Jon in particular proves valuable, as he understands administration due to serving as Lord Mormont's steward. Yet, even these efforts pale in comparison to the preparations of Yunkai. The Sons of the Harpy continue to strike, lashing out at sellswords, freedmen, and even some nobles who lent their support to Daenerys. Harrion does his best to put these uprisings down. He personally leads raids into suspected hideouts, dragging out the members of his organization and executing them. But each time one member falls, two more take their place. And then, the armies come. Yunkish troops stream from the borderlands as waves of slave soldiers rush forward. Although they are not particularly well trained, they are supported by light infantry recruited from the fringes of Slaver's Bay, hired lockstep legions, and even scythed chariots. While the Unsullied and the Stormcrows are capable of facing them, the rest of Daenerys' army is too poorly trained, and the Queen is reluctant to use her dragons after an incident where they burned an innocent child. This leads to frustration among some of the delegation.
This is madness. What is the point of having dragons if she refuses to use them? Some claim it takes discipline to show such restraint.
Some might say it makes our efforts here pointless. We allied with the Dragon Queen because she can help us gain independence, yet we seem to be the ones fighting her wars.
We can't expect her to just sail halfway across the world when she has a kingdom here. We have to prove our worth as allies.
I think we've done more than enough. Now it's time for these people to prove their worth.
Well then, you've trained these freedmen. Maybe it's time we use them in battle.
To that, Harrion actually grins as he musters his army to war. It isn't a large force, some 3,000 infantry and 600 cavalry provided by the former masters. These efforts prove effective. While they cannot defeat them outright, the forces of Yunkai face the fury of the Northmen. Quentyn and his men join as well, having trained the people of Meereen in the ways of archery and slinging stones. For the first time, they begin to face serious resistance and get pushed back, but their advance is not halted as their forces soon regroup and attack again. The success emboldens the people of Meereen as more contingents ride to their aid. Harrion sets up his position along the nearby hills where he can launch raids on the enemy as they advance. To help, the new skirmishers trained by Quentyn are positioned along the heights to prevent the Jaskari legions from rushing their position. And yet, while they stop the heavy infantry, the Yunkish armies change tactics. They pull back their heavy troopers and cavalry, who cannot storm the high ground, and replace them with their slings and archers. Many of these warriors have trained with their weapons all their lives, and are more than a match for the hastily trained troops of Marine. So, hill by hill, slope by slope, the army begins to lose ground. Harrion and John reorganize their army as best they can. What few horsemen they have try to scatter the skirmishers, but each time they launch a cavalry charge, the Yunkish sellswords and legionaries push them back. Despite their best efforts to hold on to their position, they lose their offensive position, and soon, their very headquarters comes under threat. Reluctantly, Harrion and John must pull back to the plains and retreat. Yet, in their retreat, they open their backs to the enemy, who sent their scythed chariots rushing forward towards them. The whole world becomes a cloud of dust and swirling wheels as the charioteers fall upon them, blades flashing along their wheels. Those too slow to take cover are cut down at the leg. Others are struck from behind by crossbows or spears. The retreat becomes a rout as men panic. They throw down their weapons and make a run for it, leaving them easy prey for the Yunkish. Quentin nearly joins them, but John grabs his arm and steadies him. He rides up and down their lines, rallying the men. Rather than retreating, he orders them to make ramparts from weapons, shields, corpses, whatever they can find. Though panicked, men begin listening, especially once Harrion adds his voice. He looks at John incredulously, but soon recognizes his plan. In minutes, the makeshift barricades rise, and the chariots are forced to break formation to avoid them. Once isolated, they become easy prey to the thrown spears and surviving archers of Quentin's unit. But while the chariots are defeated, the good masters order their light infantry forward to finish them off. Yet, as they approach and begin raining missiles on them, a roar defies the sky, as Drogon descends from the heavens and opens his jaws as fire rains down. The light infantry barely has time to scream before they are engulfed in fire. The few who manage to actually lose their weapons have them melted in their hand. The dragon sweeps around and prepares for another pass, but the Yunkish forces retreat for now, allowing John and Harrion's forces to return to the city. At first, Daenerys is furious at this, but to her surprise, the soldiers seem excited, and many have their morale raised. To them, they had seen the Yunkish army scattered, and it was not just the dragons. They had seen how John and Harrion led the former slaves to defeating the vaunted chariot unit of the Yunkish. Daenerys is surprised to see how eager her people are to fight.
You wish to break the wheel, your grace, but you do not have to do that on your own. There are many here eager to fight. Do not deny them that chance to free themselves.
The young Snow is right, your grace. A good leader fights for their people, but a great one lets them fight for themselves.
Daenerys considers this and turns her gaze to the plumes of smoke rising in the distance. The war is not over, but she will not be a passive observer any longer. The drums of war echo across Slaver's Bay. She now strikes with fire and steel. Banners fly not just from Marine's walls, but on the open field. John and Harrion ride beside her captains as the freedmen ranks march in ordered companies, their confidence hard-won from surviving the chariot onslaught. Quentin's archers spread along the ridges, pelting the Yunkish advance with stone and flame. Barristan Selmy himself takes the vanguard, his white cloak fluttering as he cuts through the Jaskari infantry. And for the first time, Daenerys unleashes not just Drogon, but all three of her dragons together. Their wings blot out the sun as they wheel above, swooping low to scatter cavalry and burn supply trains. The Yunkish, caught between dragon fire above and Jon's infantry below, begin to falter. Still, Daenerys sees the truth as her council gathers in the aftermath.
They bleed, but they do not break. Each victory costs us men we cannot replace, and for every foe we slay, the Yunkish raise more from the corners of Essos.
That is why we sent word to Westeros. You must hold until reinforcements come.
And pray they come before Yunkai brings another army. We've bloodied them, yes, but we haven't broken them. They may have more men than fleas on a dog.
Weeks pass. Skirmish after skirmish leaves the Yunkish lines ragged, their slave levies hesitant, but still their banners stand outside Marine. Then, one morning, the horizon changes. A great fleet arrives from the west, sails bearing the sun and spear of Dorne, the direwolf of Stark, in strange banners the Marinese have never seen before, crude designs painted on rough hides. The wildlings have come, 5,000 strong, with their women and children settled in the city, while their warriors take the field. Giants stride among them, towering above men and horses alike. Their arrival electrifies the army. When the Yunkish legions march out again, they are met not by wary freedmen alone, but by a host that roars with savage fury. The giants smash through the lockstep ranks as if they were reeds, tearing men and shields apart. Wildling raiders pour through the gaps, howling, their axes flashing. Even hardened mercenaries throw down their spears as the colossal shadows loom over them. For the first time since the war began, the Yunkai broke outright, their legions scattering into dust. Victory is not complete, but it is decisive. Marine celebrates, freedmen dancing in the streets, dragons soaring high. For the first time, Daenerys rules not in fear of the next blow, but with hope. At long last, the slavers surrender, offering to surrender their lands and to sign a treaty outlawing slavery. Dany also demands that lands be allocated toward the wildlings, those 5,000 who helped her, and any more who might arrive. With that, the war comes to an end. Far away, in King's Landing, the lions bleed. With Tywin dead, the court reels. Cersei clings to power but finds her name mocked in whispers. Tywin could at least keep them in line through fear, but Cersei lacks her father's reputation, and her name quietly sinks back into the mud, especially with her refusal to condemn the Red Wedding. She turns to the Faith, promising gold and favor, but her schemes falter. The High Sparrow is disgusted by her inability to properly separate herself from her father. Yet the Tyrells remain part of the crown, and the part that people like. Slowly, Marjorie sways courtiers away from the Lannisters. Marjorie wraps Tommen in silks and smiles, her sweet voice turning the boy into a pliant figurehead. They continue to attend events, hoping to clean their name and improve the family's reputation with some success. Mace seizes command of the crown's finances, promising stability. He makes good on many of those promises, thanks to the wealth of the Reach, largely untouched by the war. This provides some sense of normalcy to the beleaguered population of the city. Meanwhile, Olenna sharpens her daggers in the shadows. She hears rumors that stir old memories. Tales of northern wolves fight in the east, of dragons once more scorching the battlefield, of Dornishmen crossing the sea. She leans back in her chamber, fingers tapping the arm of her chair, and murmurs to her kin.
If wolves, suns, and dragons are truly stirring, then it may be time for the roses to grow in their shadow. Better to choose our side early, before the storm sweeps us all away.
While Mace dismisses this as rumors or exaggeration, Olenna knows better. The Starks and Martells would not commit so many resources to a campaign in the east for mere rumors. She slowly begins to send tentative letters to the Prince of Dorne and the King in the North, offering feelers of peace and trying to negotiate. If they cannot keep their crown, she will at least ensure House Tyrell survives. Meanwhile, Daenerys and her fleet finally set sail. The terms of their alliance are finalized. Robb will put aside his crown, but in exchange, the North shall receive all the same privileges as Dorne, with increased autonomy. At the same time, land shall be allocated for any wildlings who wish to move to Slaver's Bay. With that, the Targaryen fleet sets sail. Yet, as this happens, the Riverlands burn as Randyll Tarly advances again. With her efforts to gain power through politics failing, Cersei instead turns to military power. In this aspect, she ultimately finds success, as the North's commitment to the Targaryens means they are not in a position to send many troops to their southern domains. Villages smolder in the wake of Randyll Tarly's advance, and Roose Bolton's riders spread terror across the countryside. From Harrenhal to the Trident, small folk flee before the lions and their allies. If she cannot win them over, then she will have them bend with bloodied knees. Still, the Riverlords resist as Edmure and the Blackfish rally whoever they can in an effort to halt these attacks. Their forces rush out to meet them, guarding crossing points and sending out raiders to harass the enemy army. It is a bold plan, but their numbers are thinned. While they can hold Randyll Tarly, a second army under the command of Devin Lannister appears from the Golden Tooth and attacks their thin defensive lines. Unable to send help, they smash through the defenses and begin crossing the Red Fork. Edmure slowly pulls his forces back to Riverrun, steeling himself for a siege. And then the banners come. Direwolves, Sun Spears, and the three-headed dragon. Jon Snow rides at Robb's side, Harry and Karstark close behind, as Daenerys herself descends from the skies on Drogon. While Edmure handles the defense, the Blackfish goes on the attack, aiming to prevent the two royalist armies from meeting. He attacks both groups, trying to buy time for the Northmen to arrive. The host meets on the banks of the Trident as the Blackfish makes his stand there. Randyll Tarly drives the Reach host from the south, Devin Lannister presses from the west, and Roose Bolton commands, eager to crush the last Stark resistance. For a moment, it seems the allied host will be caught in a perfect pincer. The Blackfish's troops number only 9,000 men, yet he does not surrender and continues to rally his people. But while they are pressed hard, Robb arrives with fresh troops. The northern host he brings is not large, but it provides some relief. But the real army comes a day later, in the form of the army of the Targaryens. The northern cavalry crashes forward, supported by freedmen and unsullied and disciplined ranks. They rush to the rear of the Riverlands, where the net has not fully closed yet, and reinforce their lines. Against the Unsullied, they manage to reform a solid front that beats back the next Targaryen charge. Quentin's archers and Dornish reinforcements cut down the first Lannister charge. Then, the sky erupts with fire. Drogon plunges through the clouds, flames sweeping across Tarly's center, scattering horses and shattering discipline. Rhaegal and Viserion wheel after him, driving their rear units into rout. In the chaos, the Blackfish leads a countercharge with his remaining horsemen and rushes into the crumbling Tyrell lines. He finds Randall Tarly, and their duel is short but brutal. Two veterans of different wars are clashing in the mud. Steel rings, shields splinter, and then the Blackfish buries his blade in Randall's chest. The sight of their general's fall breaks the southern line. Rickard Karstark leads the charge against Roose Bolton himself. The traitor's crimson armor gleams as he carves down Stark men, but Rickard will not falter. He duels Roose amidst the melee, their blades clashing until Robb himself rides in, Grey Wind snapping at Bolton's horse. Together, Rickard and Robb bring him down, Rickard's axe splitting his guard, Robb's sword piercing his heart. The Dreadfort's lord dies, gasping in the mud, betrayed by the chaos he once thrived in. The Unsullied, steady as iron, press against the western levies under Devon Lannister. Their discipline grinds down the young Lannister forces until, at last, the boy lord is dragged from his horse. When the dust clears, the field belongs to the wolves and the Dragon Queen. Smoke rises from the shattered chariots and broken legions of the Lannisters and Tyrells. The Trident, once again a river choked with corpses. Victory reshapes the realm. Word spreads fast. Daenerys Targaryen has landed. Her dragons unleashed. Her armies allied with Stark and Martell. In King's Landing, panic reigns. Cersei rages, but few listen. Her gamble on the faith backfires as sparrows and septums turn on her corruption. Courtiers abandon her like rats from a sinking ship. It is Marjorie and Olenna who move to steady the position. They secure Tommen and step into the void left by the Lannister ruin. Within days, ravens fly to Daenerys' camp with terms. The Tyrells will renounce the Iron Throne and acknowledge Daenerys' claim, so long as Tommen will retain his lordship of the Westerlands under Marjorie's guidance, preserving Tyrell influence in the West. In return, the Tyrells keep their wealth, their lands, and their safety from fire and sword. Robb reads the offer with narrowed eyes. To him, the rose seems ever slippery, quick to bend whichever way the wind blows. But Daenerys considers it with the weight of a queen.
Let them keep their roses. We will have their thrones. Better the Lannisters fear Tyrell thorns than try to rise again.
For the first time since Robert's rebellion, the Targaryen banner flies victorious over the Riverlands, and soon the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. With this victory, Daenerys begins setting up her court. She recruits Mance to begin gathering more wildlings and help her administer Meereen, while Robb keeps watch of the north. Marjorie is tasked with watching the Lannisters and ensuring they do not attempt to rise again, and Jon is named Daenerys' hand. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you wish to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.